Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Kathy Barnett Show. I appreciate each and every one of you. And as always, I am going out here searching the highways and the byways, trying to find the most relevant voices. There's a lot of noise out there, but we need real information. And that is my job, is to go out and to try to find those voices and bring them to you, authentic experiences of what's going on all around us, so that we are better informed and know how to live, how to make better decisions. That's the point of all of this. And so joining me is Eyal Jacoby. Hello, Eyal. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am doing well. Let me just introduce you to my audience. Eyal is currently a 21-year-old student at the University of Pennsylvania studying political science and modern Middle East studies. And so, again, Eyal, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you having me.
Yes. Now, I reached out to some of my friends and I asked them, I said, I want to know, because everyone is watching what's going on these college campuses, Columbia, you name it, MIT, Harvard. And right here in my own backyard, University of Pennsylvania, we see what's going on. It is craziness. And most of us don't fully understand or can wrap our mind around it. And we're seeing a lot of people talk about it. We see a lot of people on Fox News, Twitter, and everything in between. But I wanted to actually, and we see a lot of talking heads. Very few times are we actually seeing students who are not pro Hamas talking. And so I wanted to find someone, a student, a normal human being, just like the rest of us, who's living and experiencing it firsthand. And so, Eyal, that's the reason why I wanted to bring you on. And let's just start off with, talk to us about what it is that you're seeing, what it is that you're experiencing.
Definitely. So it's definitely a pertinent topic, obviously. And as you said, there are a lot of voices that are making noise right now. Um, I can't speak for every college campus of every encampment. What I can speak about is Penn and some other universities where I have friends at. To anyone listening, the Penn encampment is the least peaceful demonstration that you can imagine. We have already had them chanting Al Qassam, make us proud, which is, of course, the armed wing of Hamas. They've been waving the PFLP flag for the past week. Cops have been accosted, students have been accosted. They've graffitied the campus on numerous occasions. Even the president of Penn yesterday issued a statement, and he said this in no uncertain terms. He said, a lot of people are saying that this is a peaceful encampment. And he then goes on to say, it is not. And so I'm confused as to how people can see a lot of these videos and then still try and act like it's peaceful or compare it to, let's say, the Vietnam protests. Because what we're seeing right now is individuals breaking the law, not only just breaking the law, but supporting a foreign terrorist organizations.
Double click on when you say least peaceful, double click on the word students being accosted, police being accosted, and really describe to us what are some of the forms of bullying and intimidation that you're witnessing and that others are talking to you about on campus.
Definitely. And is there any like censoring in terms of what words I can say or
No. I mean,
okay.
generally, I don't cuss. I mean,
Okay.
so fine. But if it's something but if it helps you to express it, to get it out, then please feel free to share.
Definitely. So, and a lot of these videos are also on my Twitter account. So, anyone who wants to fact check me is more than happy to do it. But Jews have been called Hitler's children. They've been called Nazis. They've been called kikes. The F word has been thrown around at many Jewish students who identify with the LGBTQ plus community. Jews have been spit on campus. There's a viral video now of a Jewish student simply walking on campus, not even in the encampment, and four masked individuals threatening him, saying, I hope you have good health insurance. I hope you have a dental plan, with strobe lights in his eyes. And the student remains extremely calm. And so this is at this point become a daily occurrence at Penn. And I think, the juxtaposition, right, is that then people come and they post pictures or videos saying, I joined the Penn encampment yesterday and it was nothing but peaceful. Well, yes, but you also agree with their exact ideology, so why wouldn't they be peaceful to you? And if you at all disagree with them in any capacity, then you will be deemed a threat and they will start harassing you, and in a lot of cases, violently.
I just saw, listening to what you're saying, I'm looking at my Twitter right now. I just so happened to pick it up right before you came into the studio. And I'm probably not going to be able to find it because when you need something, you can't find it. But um, listening to what you just said brought to mind what we just what I just saw pop up, that the fraternity, I believe it's in West Virginia, I can't remember, but one of the frat boys who was making monkey noises at a black um protester was kicked out of the fraternity, probably being investigated at the university level. They have zero tolerance for a white boy making monkey noises at a black girl who is one of the pro Hamas, pro Palestinians. I don't even know what it is that I don't think they even know what it is that they're rallying for right now. And now compare that to what you're saying. You're being called Hitler's children. I don't even know what kite mean. And other derogatory names, racist names, tropes, racist tropes, all of those kind of things. What's the difference, do you, in your mind, between what is happening with a white boy making monkey noises at a black woman who's part of the pro Palestinian, pro Hamas camp versus what you and other Jewish children, young people are experiencing? What's the difference? Why do we see the hand of the power that be coming down hard on one but not the other?
I'm not sure. And hearing that student who was making the monkey noises was kicked out of the fraternity, and I know he is also under investigation, is great. If you utter words of bigotry at anyone, I will stand by you and say that that is absolutely unacceptable. And I think it just needs to go both ways, and I think it's as
Why do
simple
you
as
think
that.
it's not going both ways? I mean, reasonable people generally would say, I believe I'm reasonable. You appear to be very reasonable, that this should go both ways if we're going to apply the law. Why, in your mind, do you believe it's not going both ways?
Your guess is as good as mine. That's what I've been saying for months now. Since October 7th, there's been open support for terrorism. I want to make a distinction. This isn't saying I disagree with Israel or I hate Israel even. I mean, this is literal flags being flown of terrorist organizations openly on college campuses
And
at
it's destruction of property. It is prohibiting your freedom of access to buildings. Maybe not
definitely.
yours specifically, but we've seen other young people being denied access. We see the intimidation. We see the bullying. This is not just expressing an opinion about their support or disdain for the actions of Israel. This is so much more beyond that. I think most reasonable people would agree with that.
I fully agree, and I think another aspect is in my at least social media accounts, I very much hone in on what's happening on college campuses, the anti-Semitism that has been permeating throughout the U.S., and then in the comments, the constant kind of argument against what I'm saying is, why aren't you protesting your genocidal government? Well, I'm an American Jew, so why am I being held accountable for what you believe that the Israeli government is doing? And we've never seen this happen to any other group. You don't see Russians in America being violently protested like Jewish people for the actions of Russia against Ukraine. You don't see that against Chinese people for what China is doing against the Uyghurs. And so it's just mind-boggling to me how this double standard is just constantly being applied to Jews. And what's scary is that universities are supposed to be the bastions where we force people to basically critically think and think about their actions. but instead they're coddling our students to say that if you feel a certain way, then you somehow have the right to disobey the law, when that is the exact opposite of what they should be teaching them. They should be teaching them right from wrong. And instead, they're teaching them that as long as you think that the law doesn't apply to you, then go act on it, because we're not going to do anything. The pen encampment has been there now for 12 days. The university administration last week already said that it violates the law, it violates school policies, and they should be immediately disbanded. Yesterday, they released another statement saying that negotiations are not working, but we are going to still negotiate because we don't want to escalate things. And what bothers me so much is that things are escalating. It's just escalating against the students who simply want to go to class and experience the university and education that they're paying for. And so it's this total lack of logic, in my opinion, from Penn's administration as well as others.
Do you feel safe?
Not at all. I mean, it's not even that I said I posted this last week. It's not that I don't feel safe. It's just a factual statement that no student on campus is safe right now. There was just documents that were released 4 days ago, which the Penn administration actually commented, so they have seen them, on a DIY how to make weapons that was circulating within the Penn encampment. There was another document that was titled How to Escalate, and it was an 8-page document: how to avoid arrest, how to accost police officers, how to break into buildings, how to make sure that your identity is protected so that if you do break the law, that you're not brought to justice. And so these documents have been circulating within the Penn encampment. The university knows about them, but they're still not doing anything. And so it's not even the question of whether I feel or don't feel safe. I mean, considering the fact that we know that there's weapons within the encampment, we have pictures of them. We know that they plan on escalating. We know that they have DIY how to make weapons. We know that they have openly supported terrorist organizations. We know that they've already accosted students. We know that they've already accosted policemen. We know they don't even want to negotiate on anything. I don't know how else, students could feel safe or are safe considering those facts.
What do you believe? What's your sense? Are these truly organic student protesters, or do you believe they're primarily paid actors and agitators?
I think there's 3 different camps. So I think there's 100% paid agitators, and if anyone goes to visit the Penn encampment, you can very quickly see who is a paid agitator.
How?
I mean, they're just the most, caricature looking Antifa people. And we also have identified certain individuals who, like Samantha Rise, for instance, who's a professional protester. She'll be at Penn this week. You'll see her at another college campus next week. So 100% paid agitators.
Very true. Yeah.
Then the next,
I saw that when I was on the campaign trail with Vivek. We're in Iowa of all places, and you see certain people who come out to protest against him or whatever policy they may be pushing in the legislature. And then I go to New Hampshire, and the same person is there, and it's like, wait a minute, how is
exactly.
this possible?
Exactly.
But
And since the Columbia encampment was shut down, we've actually seen people who are at the Columbia encampment move to Penn.
Move over here to Penn. Okay, so one is paid actors or paid agitators. The second
Then the
camp?
second camp is part of what's called SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine. It's a American organization that has direct ties, which have been proven, to terrorist organizations in terms of funding and certain materials. And so those are what I call cells. And each university has a cell, and those cells are interconnected between universities. So the same escalation document that I mentioned at Penn was also seen at Emory. So we know for a fact that there is some sort of information sharing that's happening. We also see the same exact green tents at every single college campus. And I'm sorry, I just don't think it's that big of a coincidence. I've been to music festivals. I've never seen the exact same tent at every single location. It's just, there's no logical explanation as to how there could be the exact same green tent at every single university, which dominates them. So there's some sort, and the NYPD chief commissioner also said a few days ago, he said that we've never seen such a level of organization and coordination between
Mm.
these protests. And so this has been proven that there is some sort of coordination between the different encampments. And then the third group, I think, is your average ignorant college student who wants to hop on to the next what they view social justice movement without having a clue as to what they're even protesting, other than them thinking that it makes them cool. I mean, we saw at NYU a video that was released of two people literally emerging from a tent and a reporter asking them, what exactly are you protesting for? And they openly, and to their credit, say, we don't really know. We saw at Columbia on the stairs of Hind Hall, there was Free Palestine. The one caveat is that they misspelled Palestine, Pala, which is not even how you spell Palestine. And so there's clearly, a group that's just ignorant and hopping on to what they view as the next social justice cause without understanding that this has nothing to do with social justice
And
whatsoever.
so you have these three groups, but 2/3 of these groups are not organic, people, but they're, to you, as you pointed out, and as many of us have seen, very well organized, very well funded. Somebody's pulling the string. This is not just a pop-up situation. This is not organic. There's something a little bit more nefarious that's going on. But going back, because when I went out and just did a quick Google of your name, I saw that that you're not just now standing up and saying anti-Semitism is here, it is on the rise, there's something very nefarious going on. I saw a video dating roughly 5 months ago where you were saying the exact same thing, that there is something afoot here. There's something we need to be paying attention to. What was the response then, 5 months ago, of you putting out a clarion call that there's an escalation of hate that is on the rise here, targeting the Jewish community? And now, fast forward 5 months and seeing a lot of that coming to fruition. What's been the response?
Definitely. And if you backtrack 1 year ago, you wouldn't see my name anywhere near any of this stuff, just because it's not who I am. It's literally just become such an overwhelming a level of hatred and bigotry that everyone has to stand up at this point, or else there will be no future at all. And so you're exactly right. Even before October 7th, Penn hosted the Palestine Rights Literature Festival, where they invited what the city of Frankfurt stated, quote, was one of the most renowned anti-Semites in the world, aka Roger Waters. And that is when I started speaking up, because I thought it was ridiculous that Penn has barred speech from speakers coming to speak at Penn for far less than the utterly appalling words which a lot of these speakers have said who were being invited to campus. And I said, this is a clear double standard from the university. And it wasn't like it was just one professor that was organizing this event and saying that it was about, free speech, hearing other people. It was branded as a literature festival, and it was departments that were sponsoring it. And so we stood up. Of course, Liz McGill, former president of Penn,
Right.
was removed after the infamous hearing back in the fall. And what I'm realizing is that the moral rot at our universities is so much deeper than anyone could have predicted. And I've been saying this for the past 2 weeks, and I'll continue to say it, is to an extent, the students at these protests are victims, because professors have been brainwashing them and indoctrinating them to think this way and encouraging them to break the law. But when the
And
dust
so
settles,
do you see any shift from removing the head of that snake, from Liz McGill being removed and now the current president Jameson being brought in? Do you? Well, I guess not, because we're looking at it, right? So how much has changed with just removing the head of the figure?
I think what's changed is that people have woken up to the fact that if you utter words of bigotry and hate, you will be held accountable. And I want to make that clear to anyone, whether they be anti-Semitic, racist, sexist, whatever it may be, is you should be held accountable for what you say. And so at this point, to an extent, I think that a lot of these professors have gotten sloppy. And what they were saying behind closed doors, they're now saying openly. And so I think we're at an inflection point in Penn specific history is whether this university is going to continue to regress into hatred and something that it's not even academic at this point, or are we going to cede to these violent protesters and professors who are continuously espousing words of bigotry. And I think what a lot of people miss in this whole conversation is the precedents that they're setting now will bite them in the future. And I think that's what they're not getting, is that a lot of, for instance, Antifa, right? Antifa is not recognizing at Penn's campus that white supremacists are watching their actions and they're going to replicate them. And when Antifa tries to hold them accountable, they're just going to say, what do you mean? We're doing
Well,
the
they would just
exact
call
same
it
thing that you did.
January 6th, right? I mean, again, we've seen the double standards. We've seen people have these aha moments, right? We saw in the summer of 2020, we saw Black Lives Matter destroying personal property. We saw Antifa commandeering whole city blocks, destroying federal buildings. And then you have a group of people go to listen to their president on January 6th of 2021, and all hell comes down on them. Nothing happens to Antifa. And I believe what we're experiencing, and you've already spoken to it and alluded to it in other spots, is that there is a double standard, and they know it. They know that they can say what they want to say, do what they want to do, and very little, if anything, is going to be done against them. I feel a sense of not only have our young people been failed by those in the university settings, the teachers and the administrators and the heads of these universities for allowing such a thing to happen, but our students, young people like yourself, have been failed by our government. I remember during January 6th, even if people were wearing masks, they were identified within minutes. And the media got involved, people got involved, social media companies got involved in tracking these people that they thought were nefarious individuals. And a lot of them have now come under the strong hand of the government. And yet I don't see any of that. I don't see the names and the photos and these people, whether they're agitators or a part of, I thought it's very chilling that you will call it an interconnected cells. Generally, we use the word cells to indicate terrorist organizations, and here you are saying it. So I feel a sense of loss and sadness for young people like yourself.
I mean, and you can look back to, or anyone can look back into any statement I've made since October 7th, or even prior to that, about, anti-Semitism overall at large. I have never used or described anyone as terrorists, because that word is reserved for a very special type of evil.
Right.
And so I mean it when I say it very intentionally too. If you wave the flag of a U.S. designated terrorist organization, if you chant "Death to America," we just saw at the World War I memorial in New York that they desecrated it with "From the River to the Sea" and then burned an American flag on top of the memorial. There was just a document released on how to, quote, destroy America, destroy the UK, destroy Germany, destroy Israel. There was a document and these documents are encircling different encampments. And there's just no other word to describe these people than terrorists at this point. I mean, there's literally nothing else that.
So you don't believe that it's free speech?
I am a free speech absolutist in terms of how I think that the only way to combat hate speech is through free speech, because you need a marketplace of ideas, and I believe that humans tend to stray to good. And so when there's a marketplace of ideas, the best ideas will be the ones that emerge. But two things on that. Right now, there's no marketplace of ideas. These encampments have barricades set up so that no one can enter the encampment. So there's no discussions. There's no marketplace of ideas.
And even and even behind the encampments, you have the professors, and it's overwhelmingly one any uh what's the word I'm looking for, but any speech that is not sanctioned speech is not allowed in that
Yes.
environment. So it's not a marketplace of ideas. It's just one set of ideas.
Yes, it's free speech for me, but not for thee. And then the other side of it is that most of this stuff doesn't actually have to do with free speech. And I think the free speech debate
Mm.
actually just distracts from the clear. I think the free speech debate is a great debate to be had amongst constitutional lawyers, people who actually know about what they're talking about, and not just the average person in the encampment who hasn't even completed their college degree, who all of a sudden is acting like a First Amendment lawyer. and
Right.
and I'm able to say that I am not a lawyer, and I don't have some legalistic argument as to what's free speech and what's not. But what I do know is that most of this doesn't have to do with free speech. Destruction of property isn't free speech. Accosting cops and students is not free speech. Barring someone's movement on campus is not free speech. And then there's the whole nother argument is that universities do not follow the First Amendment. I mean, I don't know when people thought that that was the case, but just like I can't go into the library of Penn where it has a big sign saying the quiet room and start blasting a speaker, I will be asked to leave that room. But why? Isn't it free speech? So we obviously have community norms and community guidelines that happen. The primary purpose of a university is not to utter any hate speech that you want. It's to pursue an academic mission. And so if your hate speech is deteriorating that mission and going against it, then you no longer, are able to cite that. And just a quick story that I'm sure you'll appreciate is Penn has something called the AAUP. It's basically a union for professors, and each university has a different chapter. And AAUP is literally filled with every single professor who is part of the encampment. And since October, I mean, they condemned. This is the level of moral, you know,
Rot.
blindness, rot that they have. Is our former president, President McGill, issued a statement in condemnation of October 7th. The AAUP at Penn condemned McGill's statement. I mean, the level of evil to do that is truly shocking. But the good story is that AAUP since has been these beacons of free speech. They anytime someone is
All of a
condemned,
sudden, I hear
all
these
of a
people
sudden,
talking about free speech. It's just, I almost feel as though we're being gaslit.
it's no, it literally is. But
It does. It feels that way.
they released a statement in defense of the Columbia encampment, actually the day after that they broke in to Heinz Hall and started
Yeah.
bashing windows. And so I reposted it and I quoted myself saying, I think this is, utterly just appalling in my opinion that you do not mention any of the anti-Semitic or unlawful acts that are being committed. You only seek to defend them. And so I was exercising my right to free speech. What did they do in turn? They blocked me on Twitter for posting that. So where is the free speech all of a sudden that they've been echoing for the past 6 months?
But what about the fact that these are overwhelmingly young people? Young people tend to do silly, crazy things, and we don't want to destroy their future. So let's give them a pass. I mean, you're a young person. Wouldn't you want me to chalk something that you do that we may find stupid as adults to just your youth?
Sure. And that was the case when all these colleges said if you do not leave by 2 p.m., then this will be your consequence. And for instance, at Columbia, they issued 5 of those statements. And even before the police entered Heinz Hall on a loudspeaker, they said, this is your final chance to clear out before we start making arrests. This is your final chance to do that. They even gave them a chance then. And so I fully agree. If you're young, you're stupid, you're ignorant, you've been brainwashed, as I mentioned, sure, you should be given a second chance. And which you will be. No one's asking to throw these people behind bars for life. But at a certain point, if you continuously tell someone, if you continue this behavior, this will be the outcome, and then they say, I don't care about the outcome, at a certain point, you need to tell them right from wrong and explain to them you can't just break the rules. And so I think that opportunity has been given to them on ample occasions, and they've just not cared about the consequences. And again, back to those documents that I was mentioning, they literally have a document on de-arrest, how to avoid arrest. And they also have, and you can see this at any of the encampments, they have a phone number in Sharpie written on their forearms on who to call if they get arrested.
Yeah.
So
Right.
they, they're going to start complaining once the arrest happens, but on every chance that they've gotten to not be arrested, they just simply don't care.
Right, exactly. It's children playing with fires in the middle of a forest, a dry forest at that, right? We've had so many different things go on in our country right now. What used to be very green and moist is becoming very brittle. And so and a child, even an ignorant child, or even a well-meaning child with a box of matches is not going to bode well for the rest of us. And so, Eyal, thank you so very much for coming. Now, as a mom, one of the thoughts that's been just kind of floating in my mind as I'm talking to you, I have a young son. He's getting ready to graduate from high school and go off to college. And so I'm having all of these various thoughts. What is your mom thinking? How are your parents? What kind of advice are they giving or are they sharing with you right now?
Well, first of all, congratulations to your son on almost finishing high school. In terms of my parents, what what they don't know can't bother them. So it's definitely I don't want to share all the information as to,
Mm,
for instance, what my Twitter feeds are filled with. Um, but I genuinely I hate this answer, but I don't know what the future of higher education is. I genuinely just don't know, and I'm fighting to restore it. And you know, while I say that I love the school for what it used to stand for, and I want to restore the excellence to the school, these encampments literally say that they want to destroy the institution,
yeah.
and I don't agree with that. I think
I think we got to
I
stop playing around with these people.
I agree, and I think what we don't realize is how dangerous they truly are. If these were just encampments that are, for instance, trespassing, which would be enough to remove them, that's one thing. But I mean, these people are dangerous, and I mean that very seriously, and they should be nowhere near students. And the only reason that they chose college campuses and not, say, a public park is because they know that the mayor would immediately come in, say, this is unacceptable, this is public property, you can't restrict people's movement,
Yeah.
you can't harass people, and clear them within 24 hours. But what they've noticed for the past 9 months, and even before that, is that universities have this moral ineptitude to delineate between right and wrong and coddle and hold our students' hands. And so that's why they chose college campuses, is they took advantage of a weak system and a weak administration, and they persist to do this. And I think I think it was Florida State University president said this is not a daycare. We are not going to stand up for this. If you want to do this, you will face the consequences.
We do need leaders with moral clarity. Eyal Jacoby, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. Blessings to you all. Make sure you like, subscribe, share this podcast. Blessings.